The Galactic Council chamber was silent. 600 species watched the display screens as the representative stood before them. High Commander was massive, even by standards. His scales were deep red, marking him as a warrior who had conquered 12 worlds. His 4 arms crossed over his chest as he stared at the human delegation. General Daniel Carter sat in the human section with Admiral Lisa Morgan beside him. They had been part of the Galactic Council for only 6 months. Earth was still new to this community of stars. Most species barely knew anything about humans except that they came from a heavy gravity world and had achieved faster than light travel on their own. His voice boomed through the chamber. The Empire has been patient with the humans. We allowed them to join this council. We permitted them to establish colonies in unclaimed space, but patience has limits. Ambassador Corinne Phillips leaned forward in her seat. She had been Earth's voice in diplomatic matters since first contact. "What are you saying, High Commander?" "I am saying that humanity has resources we require. Your world is rich in minerals. Your people are numerous. The Empire demands that Earth surrender 70% of all resources to our control. Your military will disband. Your government will answer to authority. You will become a tributary state under our protection." The chamber erupted in whispers. Several species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They were known for such demands, but no one expected them to target humanity so soon. Carter raised his hand, "And if we refuse?" His eyes narrowed. He reached to his side and activated a device. A deep, rhythmic sound filled the chamber. It started low and built into a thunderous roar. The sound carried weight, like distant drums mixed with the roar of a predator. Words formed in the ancient language, raw and harsh. "Hell Urith, Hell Urith, Hell Urith." The translation appeared on every display screen in the chamber. "Your bones will feed our worlds." It was the war cry. Every species in the galaxy knew it. The broadcast this cry before every conquest. 47 civilizations had heard these words and surrendered without fighting. The cry represented 5,000 years of military dominance. It was a promise of total destruction. The chamber went completely silent. Several delegates looked at the humans with what might have been pity. An insect species that had fought the centuries ago clicked their mandibles in what their species considered a gesture of respect for the dead. Then something unexpected happened. General Carter made a sound. It started as a snort, then became a chuckle. Within seconds, he was laughing, not nervous laughter or the sound of someone breaking under pressure. It was genuine, full-bellied laughter. Admiral Morgan looked at him, her lips twitching. Then she started laughing too. Within moments, the entire human delegation was laughing. Not all of them. Ambassador Phillips kept a straight face, though her eyes showed amusement. But the military personnel couldn't contain themselves. Scales darkened to almost black. In culture, this was a sign of extreme anger. "You dare mock the war cry of the Empire." Carter wiped his eyes and stood up. He was still smiling. "I'm sorry, High Commander, that was rude, but you have to understand we've heard this before." "Impossible. The war cry is unique to our empire." "Not the exact words," Carter said, "but the message, your bones will feed our worlds. That's a good one. Let me think." He paused, looking up at the ceiling. "The Mongols said they would pile skulls until the mountains wept. The Romans promised to salt the earth so nothing would grow, wanted a 1,000-year empire, said he would bury the capitalists. There was this one guy, Khan, who sent messages to cities saying surrender or everyone dies, and those were just humans threatening other humans." Morgan stood beside him. "We had a saying during one of our wars, nuts. That's what an American general said when he was surrounded and ordered to surrender, just nuts. Then he won the battle." His claws extended. "You compare the might of the Empire to your primitive tribal conflicts." "Primitive?" Carter's smile faded. "High Commander, in one war we killed 70 million of our own species in 6 years. In another we came close to destroying our entire planet with nuclear weapons. We've had wars that lasted 30 years, 100 years. We fought with rocks, swords, guns, bombs, chemical weapons, biological weapons. We've blockaded our own cities until people starved. We've burned our own forests to deny them to the enemy." He walked toward the center of the chamber. "You want to know why we laughed? Because we recognize the threat. We've made those threats ourselves. We know what they mean, and we're still here." Phillips stood now. "High Commander, the general is being informal. Allow me to provide Earth's official response. We reject your ultimatum completely. We will not surrender our resources. We will not submit to external authority. We will not disband our military. Earth remains an independent member of the Galactic Council. His voice dropped to a growl. Then you choose extinction. Carter stepped forward again. We're giving you 48 hours to withdraw this demand. If you don't, we'll consider it a declaration of war, and trust me, High Commander, you don't want that. You threaten us, you have 50 warships, we command a fleet of thousands. Your technology is centuries behind ours. You have no allies in this council. You stand alone. Morgan spoke up. We've always stood alone, it's kind of our thing. The delegate made a gesture with all four arms. In his culture, it meant the conversation was over. Humanity has 48 hours to reconsider. When that time passes, the Empire will demonstrate why our war cry has echoed across the galaxy for 5,000 years. You will learn why species surrender at the mere sound of our voice. Turned and walked out of the chamber, followed by his attendants. The moment they left, dozens of delegates rushed to the human section. A species that looked like a large floating jellyfish hovered near Carter. General, do you understand what you have done? The do not bluff. They will come for Earth. Carter nodded. I know. Then why did you laugh? Why provoke them? Because they needed to see that we're not afraid. Fear is what makes species surrender. They broadcast that war cry to break your will before the fighting starts. It's psychological warfare. But it only works if you're intimidated by it. A delegate, reptilian and ancient, spoke in a raspy voice. They have never been defeated in open warfare. Their empire spans 3 sectors. What makes you think humans can survive their assault? Morgan answered this time. Because we've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We know every trick, every tactic, every strategy of warfare. They might have conquered a lot of species, but I'm betting those species all fought the same way they do. Honorably, with rules. And humans do not fight with honor? They asked. Carter and Morgan exchanged a look. We fight to win, Carter said simply. Honor is great if you can afford it, but when survival is on the line, we do whatever works. Phillips was gathering her documents. This council is adjourned. The human delegation is returning to Earth to prepare. As they walked out, Carter heard the whispers behind them. Some species were already writing humanity off as doomed. Others were curious. A few seemed almost eager to see what would happen. In the corridor outside, Phillips caught up to Carter. Did you have to laugh? Yes, he said. I did, because the alternative was showing fear, and that would have made them even more confident. Now they're confused. Confusion creates mistakes. They're also angry. Angry enemies make poor decisions. Carter stopped and looked at the ambassador. Ma'am, the moment they issued that ultimatum, war was inevitable. The only question was whether we'd fight from a position of strength or weakness. Laughter gave us strength. I hope you're right, General. So do I, Carter admitted. Because in 48 hours, we're going to find out if humans can really back up our big talk. They boarded the shuttle back to Earth. Behind them, the Galactic Council dissolved into heated debate. And somewhere in deep space, the war fleet began to assemble. The war fleet gathered in the system, just outside human space. 300 warships hung in formation around the massive command vessel, the pride of. War Master Al stood on the bridge, watching the fleet assemble through the viewing screens. He was old for his scales showing the silver that came with age. But age brought experience, and Al had commanded victories against 17 different species. This would be his 18th conquest. Status report, he commanded. His second-in-command, X, stepped forward. All vessels have arrived. We have 300 warships, including 40 heavy cruisers and 10 siege vessels. Our ground forces number 2 million warriors. We are ready to advance on the human home world. Al nodded. Show me the intelligence reports on human military capability. A holographic display appeared in the center of the bridge. It showed Earth and its defensive fleet. 50 warships orbited the planet. They were small compared to vessels. The display listed their weapons, shields, and estimated combat capability. X pointed at the data. Their largest vessel is only 600 meters long. Our smallest destroyer is twice that size. Their weapons use primitive technology. We have plasma cannons that can melt through their hulls in seconds. Their shields are adequate for asteroid deflection, but not for military-grade weapons. What about their ground forces? Approximately 500 million soldiers across their planet, but they are divided into different nations. Our intelligence suggests they have only recently unified their command structure. They lack experience fighting as a single unit. Another officer, Commander On, added his analysis. I have reviewed their historical records, War Master. They are remarkable only in their violence toward their own species. They have fought hundreds of wars, but always against themselves. Their largest conflict resulted in 70 million deaths, but it was spread across 6 years. That is barely 12 million per year. Al listened carefully. 12 million deaths per year, how does that compare to our campaigns? The siege have resulted in 40 million deaths in 3 months, On said. They were a proud warrior species, and they fought well. These humans have never faced a real enemy. They laughed at our war cry. The bridge went silent. No one spoke. The insult still burned in every present. Finally, X spoke. They laughed from ignorance, War Master. They do not understand what the war cry means. They think because they fought among themselves, they know warfare. They will learn the difference between children playing with weapons and true warriors. Al turned to face his crew. The humans will be an example. When we are finished, every species in the galaxy will remember what happens to those who mock the Empire. Prepare to advance. Back on Earth, in a military command center buried deep under Colorado, General Carter stood in front of a different display. Colonel Jake Hamilton and Commander Cole were with him. The room was filled with officers from every human nation, all working together. Show me the fleet composition again, Carter said. Hamilton pulled up the data. 300 ships in standard battle formation. They're arranged in 3 groups of 100. The command vessel is in the center of the middle group, surrounded by their heaviest defenders. Classic hammer formation, Carter observed. They hit you from 3 sides at once, overwhelming your defenses through sheer force. Cole was reviewing different information on her tablet. General, I've finished analyzing their battle records. Every engagement follows the same pattern. They announce their arrival. They give the enemy time to prepare. Then they attack in formation, overwhelming the defensive positions through superior numbers and firepower. They give them time to prepare, Carter raised an eyebrow. Yes, sir, anywhere from 6 to 48 hours. It's part of their honor code. They believe ambush and surprise attacks are beneath them. Carter looked at Hamilton. What do you think, Colonel? Hamilton smiled. I think they've never fought anyone who didn't follow the same honor code. Every species they've conquered probably lined up and fought them face to face. They're used to enemies who play by the rules. Which means they have no experience dealing with enemies who don't. Cole pulled up more data. There's something else, General. The broadcast their war cry before every attack. It's not just intimidation. It's a ritual. They believe it honors their ancestors and brings them strength. They've done it before every battle for 5,000 years. So they're predictable. Extremely, Cole confirmed. They also have some other interesting habits. They always target command structures first, believing that killing leaders breaks enemy morale. They refuse to retreat once engaged. They consider it shameful, and they always accept single combat challenges if offered. Carter walked around the table thinking. So we're dealing with an enemy that has overwhelming force but operates within a rigid cultural framework. They're strong but predictable. They're experienced, but only against enemies who fight like they do. That's my assessment, sir, Cole said. What's their experience with guerrilla tactics, hit and run, feints, and false retreats? Hamilton checked the records. None that I can see. Every battle was a direct engagement. Ships formed up, exchanged fire until one side was destroyed or surrendered. No tactical withdrawal, no regrouping. No, sir. Once commit to battle, they see it through to the end. Carter turned to the other officers in the room. Ladies, we're about to teach the Empire a very important lesson. They think because they've won hundreds of battles, they understand warfare. They don't. They understand their type of warfare, honorable, direct, predictable. He pointed at the display showing the fleet. We're not going to fight them the way they expect. We're not going to line up our ships and trade shots until someone wins. We're going to be unpredictable. We're going to hit them where they're weak, avoid them where they're strong, and make them chase us into situations that favor us. Admiral Morgan entered the room. The fleet is ready, General. All 50 ships are armed and positioned. We've also deployed sensor nets and long-range detection systems throughout our space. Good, now here's what we're going to do. Carter pulled up a star map. They will expect us to defend Earth directly. Instead, we're going to meet them at the Rigel system. It's on the edge of our space, full of asteroid fields and debris, perfect for what I have in mind. An ambush, Hamilton asked. Better than an ambush. We're going to make them think they're winning, right up until the moment they realize they're not. Cole looked worried. General, if this doesn't work, they'll have a clear path to Earth. It will work, Carter said with confidence. Because we have something that don't understand. We fought people who used every dirty trick in the book. We invented most of those tricks. They have been fighting opponents who valued honor over victory. We value victory over everything. Morgan pulled up tactical plans. We'll split our fleet into 3 groups. 10 ships will act as bait, drawing them into the asteroid field. 20 ships will be hidden in the debris, using minimal power to avoid detection. The remaining 20 will be positioned outside the system, ready to cut off their escape. Escape, one officer asked. You think they'll try to retreat? No, Carter said. I think they'll try to regroup, and when they do, we'll be waiting. Hamilton was making calculations. General, even with perfect execution, we're outnumbered 6-1. Our weapons might be less powerful, but we need every advantage we can get. Then we'll take every advantage, Carter replied. We'll use the asteroid field for cover. We'll target their command ships first, disrupting their coordination. We'll use hit-and-run tactics, never staying in one place long enough for them to concentrate fire. And most importantly, we'll make them angry. Angry, sir? Angry people make mistakes. They are already angry because we laughed at their war cry. Let's make them furious. Furious enemies don't think clearly. Cole nodded slowly. Psychological warfare combined with unconventional tactics, it could work. It has to work, Carter said. Because if it doesn't, Earth will be fighting on its own soil, and I'd rather not give them that chance. Morgan looked at the assembled officers. You all know what's at stake. They think we're weak because we're new to the galactic community. They think our laughter was ignorance. Let's show them what humans really are when we're threatened. The officers stood at attention. Each one knew their role in the plan. Each one understood that failure meant invasion. Carter dismissed them. Get to your posts. They will be here within 24 hours. Let's give them a welcome they'll never forget. As the room cleared, Morgan stayed behind with Carter. Do you really think we can win? Carter looked at the star map showing the approaching fleet. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and nuclear standoffs. We've been knocked down more times than I can count, and we always got back up. They have their war cry. We have our history, and history has taught us one very important lesson. What's that? Never underestimate humans when their backs are against the wall. Fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Rigel system. War Master Al watched the display screens as 300 warships materialized in perfect formation. The Pride hummed with power at the center of the fleet. Scan for human vessels, Al commanded. The sensor officer's scales flickered with surprise. War Master, I detect 10 human ships. They are scattered throughout the asteroid field. Their formations are broken. They appear to be in disarray. X studied the tactical display. Only 10 ships. Where is the rest of their fleet? Unknown. Our sensors show no other human vessels in the system. Al's eyes narrowed. They sent only 10 ships to meet us. This is either supreme arrogance or supreme stupidity. Perhaps they are evacuating their colony, On suggested. These 10 ships may be a delaying force while the rest flee. Then we will crush them quickly. Al activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All vessels prepare to advance. Activate the war cry. Throughout the fleet, speakers came to life. The deep, rhythmic sound of the war cry echoed through space on all frequencies. Hal Ara, Hal Ara. On the bridge of the human destroyer, the USS Valiant, Captain Vincent Hayes listened to the war cry with a grin. They actually did it again. They announced their attack. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Sophie Grant, shook her head. They're broadcasting on every frequency. They want us to hear it. Good, that means they're following the script. Hayes opened a channel to the other 9 human ships. All vessels begin Phase 1, look scared. The 10 human ships broke formation, if you could call it a formation. They scattered in different directions, their engine signatures showing full power. It looked like panic. Al watched the human ships flee. Pathetic, they run before we even fire, advance all groups, surround them and destroy them. The fleet moved forward in their hammer formation. 100 ships on each flank, 100 in the center. They entered the asteroid field with confidence. their shields easily deflecting the smaller rocks. Hayes watched the close-in. They're taking the bait. All ships maintain evasive patterns, stay in the asteroids, make them chase you. The human ships darted between asteroids, using the cover to avoid direct fire. Plasma cannons lit up space, but the humans were fast and unpredictable. Every time a ship got a lock, the human vessel ducked behind an asteroid. They fight like cowards, X spat, hiding behind rocks. Then we will root them out, Al said. All vessels spread out, box them in. The fleet began to spread through the asteroid field. This was exactly what Hayes wanted. They're dispersing. Admiral Morgan, they're in position. From her command ship outside the system, Admiral Morgan watched the tactical display. The had spread throughout the asteroid field, breaking their tight formation to chase the 10 human ships. All stealth units power up, target the command ships first. Hidden throughout the asteroid field, 20 human ships had been waiting. They had powered down to minimal systems, hiding among the rocks with their heat signatures masked. Now they came to life. The sensor officer suddenly shouted, War Master, new contacts, 20 human ships powering up all around us. They were hiding in the asteroids. Before Al could respond, the first rounds hit. Human weapons might be primitive compared to plasma cannons, but they were fast and accurate, and the humans weren't shooting at random ships. They were targeting command vessels. 3 command cruisers exploded in the first volley. The coordination between different sections of the fleet immediately faltered. Return fire, Al roared. They did, but the humans were already moving. They fired, then immediately relocated, using the asteroids for cover. Every time a ship turned to engage, the human vessel was gone, and another was firing from a different angle. Hayes brought the Valiant around and fired a spread of missiles at a destroyer. The missiles weren't powerful enough to destroy the ship, but they didn't need to be. They were targeting the sensor arrays. Blind them, Hayes ordered. Take out their eyes. Across the battlefield, human ships focused on sensors, communication arrays, and coordination systems. They weren't trying to destroy the ships directly. They were trying to isolate them, cut them off from each other. Al watched his organized fleet dissolve into chaos. Individual ships were powerful, but without coordination, they couldn't concentrate their fire effectively. All ships reform on the pride of re-establish formation. But the humans had anticipated this. As soon as ships tried to regroup, they were hit from multiple angles. Sophie Grant's ship, the USS Defiant, executed a maneuver that would have impressed any human naval commander. She came in fast, fired a full spread, then used the gravity of a large asteroid to slingshot away before they could respond. This is like shooting fish in a barrel, Grant said. They're so focused on forming up, they're not even trying to fight back effectively. X was furious. They have no honor. They strike and run like thieves in the night. They have no honor because they are winning, Al said grimly. He was beginning to understand. The humans had never intended to fight a traditional battle. They had lured them into terrain that favored smaller, faster ships. They had broken the formation and now were using hit-and-run tactics to whittle them down. War Master, we've lost 15 ships. Another 30 are damaged. 15 ships in 20 minutes. Al had expected to lose ships, but not like this. Not without inflicting significant damage in return. His sensors showed only 2 human ships destroyed, and both of those were damaged vessels that had been overwhelmed by concentrated fire. We need to retreat and regroup, X suggested. Do not retreat. Al's voice was firm, but he also wasn't stupid. We advance through the asteroid field. Once we're in open space, we can reform and use our superior numbers. The fleet began pushing through the asteroids toward open space. The human ships harassed them all the way, never staying still, never engaging directly unless they had overwhelming advantage. Hayes watched the fight their way toward the edge of the asteroid field. Admiral, they're doing exactly what you predicted. They're heading for open space. Good, Morgan replied. Let them come. Group 3, are you in position? Captain Gary Palmer, commanding the 3rd group of 20 human ships, confirmed. We're ready, Admiral. They're going to fly right into us. They broke free of the asteroid field. For a moment, Al felt relief. Open space, room to maneuver, room to fight properly. Then his sensors lit up again. War Master, 20 more human ships directly ahead. They were waiting outside the system. Al realized the trap. The humans had divided his fleet, damaged his coordination, and now had him surrounded. Front, back, and sides. All ships concentrate fire on the group ahead. We'll punch through them and escape to regroup. The fleet turned to face Palmer's group. 300 ships, even damaged and disorganized, should have been able to overwhelm 20. But the humans had one more trick. Launch drones, Palmer ordered. Thousands of small drones launched from the human ships. They weren't weapons themselves. They were decoys, broadcasting false sensor readings. Suddenly the sensors showed not 20 ships, but hundreds. "Which ones are real?" X shouted at the sensor officer. "I don't know, the signatures are identical." They fired at everything, wasting ammunition on empty space while the real human ships picked their targets carefully. Morgan brought her ships in from behind, catching in a crossfire. The battle became a slaughter, not because the humans had better weapons or stronger shields, but because they had better tactics. They used the environment. They struck from unexpected angles. They created confusion and exploited it. Al made a decision that went against every instinct. "All ships, emergency jump, get us out of here." "War Master, that's a retreat." "I don't care what you call it, execute now." The surviving ships activated their faster-than-light drives. It was a messy withdrawal, ships jumping in different directions, but they escaped. Hayes watched them go. "Should we pursue?" "Negative," Morgan said. "Let them go, we've made our point." The battlefield grew quiet. Human ships regrouped, assessing damage. They had lost 7 ships total. They had lost 43, with another 60 severely damaged. Morgan opened a channel to all human vessels. "Well done, everyone. Today we showed the Empire that we're not going to be easy prey, but this was just the first battle. They'll be back and they'll be angry." On the pride of Al stared at the damage reports. He had been a war master for 30 years. He had conquered 17 species. And in one engagement, a species he had dismissed as primitive had humiliated him. "How did they do this?" X asked quietly. Al understood now. They fought to win, not to preserve honor. They used terrain, surprise, and deception. They did everything we consider beneath us. "Then they have no honor." "No," Al said slowly. "They have a different kind of honor. They honor survival over tradition. They honor victory over glory, and that makes them far more dangerous than I imagined." He pulled up the recordings of the battle. "Send this to the Emperor. Tell him that humanity is not what we thought. We need more ships, many more ships." X looked shocked. "You're asking for reinforcements after one battle." "I'm asking for reinforcements because I just lost 43 ships to an enemy I outnumbered 6-1. If we underestimate them again, we won't just lose ships. We might lose this war." Back on Earth, Carter reviewed the battle footage with satisfaction. "They retreated. They actually retreated." "They'll call it a tactical withdrawal," Hamilton said. "I don't care what they call it. They ran, and every species in the galaxy is going to hear about it." Emperor Hose sat on his throne, watching the battle recordings for the 3rd time. The throne room was vast, designed to intimidate visitors with its size and the countless banners of conquered worlds hanging from the ceiling. But right now, the Emperor felt no satisfaction from those trophies. 43 ships, he said quietly. Al lost 43 ships to 50 human vessels. His advisor, General Orr, stood beside the throne. "War Master Al requests 800 additional ships and authorization for total war, my Emperor." "Total war?" Hose stood and walked to the viewing screen. "We haven't declared total war in 300 years, not since the Resistance." "The humans are not like other species we've encountered," Orr said carefully. "They fight without honor. They use deception and ambush. They do not follow any code of warfare. They fight to win." The Emperor turned to face his advisor. "Al said something in his report. He said the humans honor survival over tradition. What do you think he meant?" "I believe he means they have no culture worth preserving. They are barbarians. Or they are practical." Hose pulled up data on human history. "Look at this. They have fought wars continuously for their entire recorded history, not occasional conflicts. Continuous warfare, nation against nation, tribe against tribe, sometimes the entire planet divided into massive conflicts. Or studied the data. They war against their own species. Constantly, and look at the methods they used. Chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons that could destroy their own planet. They besieged their own cities, they burned their own forests. They did whatever it took to win. Then they are monsters. No, Ho said slowly. They are survivors. Every war should have destroyed them, but they rebuilt. They adapted. They learned. He made his decision. Give Al his 800 ships. Give him authorization for total war. But tell him this, the humans must not reach our home worlds. If they are as dangerous as I now believe, we need to stop them in their own space. You think they could threaten our home worlds? I think we assumed they were weak because they were new to space. That was a mistake. Do not make another mistake by assuming they will fight the way we expect. Across the galaxy, General Carter stood in the command center watching reports come in from intelligence units. Commander Cole was coordinating information from multiple sources. General, we're detecting massive fleet movements. They're pulling ships from their border regions and consolidating them into strike groups. Carter studied the data. How many ships? At least 800, possibly more. They're forming 3 separate fleets. Hamilton whistled. They're not playing around anymore. No, they're not. Carter pulled up a galactic map. They're going to hit us on multiple fronts. They want to divide our forces and overwhelm us through sheer numbers. Morgan entered the command center. Our scouts report they are also bringing in ground forces, troop transports, siege equipment, occupation forces. They're preparing for a full invasion. They're angry, Carter said. We embarrassed them. Now they want to make an example of us. Cole pulled up additional information. There's more, General. They have been studying our history. They're analyzing our wars, our tactics, our strategies. They're trying to understand how we fight. Good, let them study. Carter turned to the assembled officers. We need to change our approach. The Rigel strategy worked because they didn't expect it. Now they'll be ready for ambushes and hit-and-run tactics. We need something different. What do you suggest? Morgan asked. Carter thought for a moment. They expect us to use unconventional warfare, so let's give them something they really don't expect. We'll fight them head-on. The room went silent. Hamilton spoke first. General, with respect, they have 800 ships. We have maybe 80 now, including our reserves. Fighting them directly would be suicide. Not if we choose where and how to fight. Carter pulled up star charts. Think in terms of force versus force. Bigger fleet wins, but we're going to teach them about force multiplication. Over the next few weeks, human and forces clashed in 5 different systems. Each battle followed a similar pattern. They would arrive with overwhelming numbers. The humans would engage them directly, then withdraw after inflicting damage. It looked like a fighting retreat, like humanity was slowly losing. But something else was happening, something they didn't notice at first. Lieutenant Sophie Grant was running a special operations mission in supply lines. Her team had infiltrated a supply depot using captured identification codes. Remember, she told her team, we're not here to destroy anything, we're here to cause problems. They moved through the depot, accessing computer systems. They didn't delete data or sabotage equipment. Instead, they made subtle changes. Fuel mix ratios altered by 5%. Navigation data shifted by tiny margins. Equipment maintenance schedules changed. Supply shipment destinations swapped. This feels too small, one of her team members said. Small problems multiply, Grant replied. Especially in a massive military operation. Wrong fuel mix means engines run less efficiently. Navigation errors mean ships arrive late or in wrong positions. Swapped supplies mean the wrong equipment goes to the wrong place. Individually, these are annoying. Together, they're devastating. Back in Earth orbit, Carter was coordinating a different kind of warfare. Open channel to all human media outlets. I want our response broadcast on every frequency that can intercept. Cole looked confused. You want them to hear our broadcasts? Absolutely. We're going to play on their psychology. The broadcast went out. It showed human children playing, laughing. It showed families having dinner. It showed construction workers rebuilding damaged stations. And between these scenes, it showed brief clips of ships retreating from battles. The narrator's voice was calm. The Empire attacked us because they thought we were weak. They're learning the same lesson that many others throughout our history learned. You can knock us down, but we get back up. And while we're getting up, we're learning how to knock you down. Then came the part Carter wanted to hear most. To the warriors listening to this broadcast, you're fighting for an empire that uses you as tools. We're fighting for our families, our homes, our survival. Which of us do you think will fight harder? Al watched the broadcast from the pride of propaganda. lies designed to weaken our morale. But X wasn't so sure. War Master, the humans in that broadcast don't look afraid, they look confident. Of course they look confident, it's propaganda. Yet the broadcast had an effect. Warriors began to wonder. They had been told humanity would surrender quickly. Instead, every battle was costly, ships were lost, warriors were dying, and the humans kept fighting. The supply problems started becoming noticeable. Ships arrived late for coordinated attacks. Fuel efficiency dropped, reducing range. Wrong equipment appeared in the wrong place. Individually, each problem was minor. Together, they created chaos. Emperor Hose received reports of the supply issues. How did this happen? Or had no good answer. We believe human infiltrators may have accessed our supply networks, but we can't find evidence of major sabotage, just small errors everywhere. Small errors shouldn't cause this much disruption. No, my Emperor, they shouldn't, unless they were deliberately designed to cascade into larger problems. Hose understood. The humans aren't just fighting our military, they're attacking our logistics, our communications, our coordination. They're fighting a different kind of war. Meanwhile, human forces were getting reinforcements from an unexpected source. Several neutral species, watching the conflict, began quietly providing intelligence to humanity. Not military assistance, but information. Fleet movements, supply routes, communication frequencies. Ambassador Phillips met with representatives from the collective. Why are you helping us? You've been neutral in every conflict. The diplomat, a floating creature named Aura, pulsed with colors that indicated concern. Because if they defeat you, they will become unstoppable. You are the first species to stand up to them effectively. We cannot openly support you, but we can provide information. Other species followed. The provided data on technology, the shared historical records of tactics. None of these species sent weapons or ships, but their information was valuable. Carter used this intelligence to refine human strategies. They are predictable because they're traditional. Every innovation we introduce forces them to adapt, and adaptation takes time. We need to keep introducing new problems faster than they can solve old ones. Hamilton had been working on a new approach. What if we attack their psychology more directly, the pride themselves on their war cry? What if we had our own response? Like what? Hamilton played a recording. It was human laughter, not mocking laughter, but genuine, joyful laughter. Children laughing, soldiers laughing. The kind of laughter that said, "We're not afraid of you." Carter smiled. Broadcast that before every engagement. Let them hear that we're still laughing. The next battle took place in the Arcturus system. The fleet arrived, ready to broadcast their war cry. But before they could, human ships began broadcasting the laughter. It filled every channel. Warriors heard human children laughing as they prepared for combat. They heard adults laughing as human ships moved into position. The laughter wasn't mocking. It was worse. It was fearless. Al felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: doubt. The humans weren't supposed to be laughing. They were supposed to be afraid. The battle was fierce. They had learned from previous engagements and adapted their tactics. But so had the humans. It was no longer a one-sided advantage for either side. It was war in its most brutal form. After 6 hours of fighting, both sides to regroup. They had lost 30 ships. The humans had lost 18. But the casualty ratio wasn't the important part. What mattered was that they were no longer confident of victory, and the humans were still laughing. X approached Al after the battle. "War Master, the warriors are talking. They say the humans are either insane or have no concept of defeat. Or they simply refuse to accept defeat," Al said. "We assumed laughter meant weakness. We were wrong. 6 months into the war, the Empire was facing a reality it had never encountered before. It was losing. Not quickly or dramatically. There was no single decisive battle that broke their forces. Instead, it was death by 1,000 cuts. Every engagement cost them ships. Every supply line faced disruption. Every attempt to adapt to human tactics was met with new human innovations." Emperor Hose stood in his war room looking at casualty reports. The numbers were staggering. 500 ships destroyed or damaged beyond repair. Millions of warriors dead. Tributary states sensing weakness and beginning to rebel. The economic cost was pushing the Empire toward bankruptcy. "How did this happen?" he asked Orr. The advisor had aged visibly in 6 months. We underestimated them, my emperor. We thought because they were new to space, they were inexperienced. But they brought 10,000 years of warfare experience with them. Every trick, every strategy, every dirty tactic they learned fighting each other, they used against us. Hose pulled up a holographic display showing human military history. Look at this. In their Second World War, they fought on every continent. They developed new weapons during the conflict. They adapted their strategies monthly. They went from traditional warfare to nuclear weapons in 6 years. They are monsters. They are pragmatic, the Emperor turned to his advisor. We could win this war if we committed everything, our entire fleet, our entire military. We could overwhelm them through sheer numbers. But the cost would be catastrophic. We would be weakened for decades. Our tributary states would rebel. Our enemies would sense opportunity. We would win the battle but lose the empire. Or understood, you're considering peace. I'm considering survival. Hose sat down heavily. Send a message to War Master Al, order him to hold position but make no further attacks. Then send a message to the humans. Tell them the Emperor wishes to discuss terms. On Earth, General Carter received the message with surprise. They want to talk. Ambassador Phillips read the message carefully. It's not a surrender, they're requesting negotiations. After 6 months of war, they suddenly want to talk. Morgan was suspicious. This could be a trick. Cole pulled up intelligence reports. Our sources indicate the Empire is facing internal problems, rebellions in their tributary states, economic strain, political opposition to the Emperor. They're not losing the war militarily, but they're losing it economically and politically. Carter understood. They can't afford to keep fighting, not without risking their entire empire. So what do we do? Hamilton asked. Carter thought for a moment. We could push for total victory, force them to surrender unconditionally, but that would mean more fighting, more deaths, more destruction. Or, Phillips prompted, or we do what we've always done best, we win the peace. The negotiations took place on a neutral station in unclaimed space. Emperor Hose arrived with minimal escort, a sign of good faith. General Carter and Ambassador Phillips represented humanity. They sat across from each other in a simple meeting room. No grand displays, no intimidation tactics, just two sides looking for a way to end a war. Hose spoke first. You fought well, General Carter, better than any species we have encountered. You fought well too, Emperor. Your warriors are skilled and brave. But they are not enough. Hose folded his forearms. We came to your world with arrogance. We assumed our war cry would make you surrender. When you laughed, we thought it was ignorance. We were wrong. Carter nodded. We laughed because we recognized the threat. We've heard threats like that before from our own tyrants. We learned long ago that words don't win wars. Actions do. Your actions have been effective, brutal without honor but effective. We fight to survive, Carter said simply. Honor is important, but survival comes first. When someone threatens your home, your family, your species, you do whatever it takes to protect them. Phillips placed a document on the table. These are our terms: complete cessation of hostilities, military withdrawal from human space, war crime tribunals for commanders who ordered attacks on civilian targets, reparations for damages caused. Or started to object, but Hose stopped him. Continue. But we're also offering something, Phillips added. Economic assistance to help rebuild your fleet, technology sharing to improve your efficiency, educational exchanges to help your species understand different approaches to problem solving, and most importantly, a mutual defense pact. Hose was surprised. You would ally with us after we attacked you. Carter leaned forward. Emperor, we've learned something throughout our history. Enemies today can be allies tomorrow if both sides are willing to move past the conflict. After our Second World War, we helped rebuild the nations we defeated. We turned enemies into trading partners and eventually into friends. Why would you do this? Because the alternative is worse. If we humiliate you, if we force you into submission, you'll rebuild with revenge in mind. Your empire will fall apart, creating chaos in 3 sectors. Or we can help you transform, help you become stronger but in a different way. Not through conquest, but through cooperation. Hose studied the human general. You could destroy us. You've proven that human tactics can defeat might. Why show mercy? Because mercy is strength, not weakness. Carter stood and walked to the window overlooking space. We've fought enough wars to know that winning isn't just about defeating your enemy. It's about what happens after the fighting stops. We can create peace through domination, but that peace never lasts, or we can create peace through understanding. Or spoke up. The Empire has ruled through strength for 5,000 years. What you're suggesting would change everything about our culture. Not everything, Philip said. Your warriors are brave, your society values honor. These are good things, but honor doesn't have to mean ritual combat. Strength doesn't have to mean conquest. There are other ways to be strong. Hose was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. What guarantees do we have that this isn't a trap, that you won't use this peace to weaken us, then attack? None, Carter admitted. You have to trust us. Just like we're trusting you to honor these terms, trust is a risk, but it's a necessary risk if we want peace. The Emperor looked at the terms again. They were fair, surprisingly so. The reparations were reasonable. The tribunals would focus on war crimes, not punishing all, and the offer of assistance was genuine. If we accept these terms, the Empire will never be the same. No, Carter agreed. It will be different, maybe better. Your choice is whether to adapt or to keep fighting a war you can't afford to win. Hose made his decision. We accept your terms, the war ends today. The formal treaty was signed 3 days later. The Galactic Council watched in amazement as former enemies sat side by side, signing documents that would reshape interstellar relations. But Carter insisted on one additional clause. It wasn't in the official treaty. It was a personal request to the Emperor. I want you to keep your war cry, Carter said. Hose was surprised. After everything, you want us to maintain the cry that started this war. Yes, but I want you to understand what it really means. Your bones will feed our worlds. That's not a threat. That's a promise of continuity, life feeding life. The old making way for the new. It's actually beautiful if you think about it the right way. You are a strange species, General Carter. We're practical and we remember. Carter extended his hand. Our species laughed at your war cry because we'd survived worse, but we respect what you were trying to protect, your people, your way of life. We just disagreed about the methods. Hose took the offered hand, an awkward gesture for a being with 4 arms, but meaningful. Perhaps our species can learn from each other. That's the idea. 1 year after the war ended, and human engineers worked side by side on a joint project. A space station designed for both species, built using combined technology. Admiral Morgan visited the station with Ambassador Phillips. They watched workers and human technicians coordinate their efforts. Do you think it will last? Morgan asked. This peace. Phillips smiled. I think it has a chance. We showed them they couldn't beat us through force. Then we showed them mercy. That combination is powerful. The Galactic Council still doesn't understand why we helped rebuild their fleet. Because we understand something most species don't, Phillips said. Peace isn't the absence of war. It's the presence of mutual respect and shared interest. We gave them a reason to maintain peace. Helping them rebuild gives them a stake in the relationship. On the home world, Young attended schools where human history was now part of the curriculum. They learned about Earth's wars, its struggles, its ability to bounce back from near extinction. One Young asked his teacher, why did the humans laugh at our war cry? The teacher, an older warrior who had fought in the war, thought carefully about his answer. They laughed because they understood the threat and were not afraid. In human culture, laughter can be many things. It can be joy, but it can also be courage. When they laughed at our war cry, they were saying, we have survived worse than you can imagine. Were they right? Yes, humans have survived things that would have destroyed most species. Ice ages, plagues, world wars, nuclear standoffs. They were knocked down countless times and they always got back up. That's what makes them both terrifying and admirable. Should we fear them? No, the teacher said. We should respect them. Fear creates conflict. Respect creates understanding. Back in the Human Command Center, General Carter was training the next generation of officers. One young officer asked him about the war. General, why didn't we push for total victory? We could have conquered the Empire. Carter looked at the young officer. And then what? Occupy 3 sectors with a military stretched thin? Rule over billions of who would resist us? Spend decades fighting rebellions? Victory isn't about defeating your enemy. It's about achieving your goals. Our goal was to protect humanity and maintain peace. We achieved that. But they attacked us first. They did, and we hurt them badly in response. But we also remembered that revenge is expensive, mercy is cheaper, and building allies is more valuable than creating resentful subjects. Carter pulled up the treaty documents. This treaty turned an enemy empire into a partner. That's worth more than conquest. The officer nodded, understanding dawning. Carter added one more thing. Remember, we laughed at their war cry not because we were mocking them. We laughed because we recognized the threat and refused to be intimidated. That's the difference between confidence and arrogance. Confidence is knowing your capabilities. Arrogance is underestimating your opponent. Though we're arrogant, we were confident. And now we're both wiser, Carter smiled. The war cry still echoes across the galaxy, but when humans hear it now, we don't laugh, we nod in respect, because we understand what it really means, a people fighting to protect their way of life. We can respect that even if we don't agree with their methods. Years later, when new species joined the Galactic Council, they would ask about the human war. They would hear the story of how an empire's war cry was met with laughter, how a species new to space defeated one of the oldest military powers in the galaxy, and how that victory led not to domination, but to partnership. The lesson spread throughout the galaxy. Strength without wisdom leads to defeat. Victory without mercy leads to endless conflict. And sometimes, the bravest response to a threat isn't violence. It's laughter, followed by the determination to prove you're tougher than anyone imagined. The war cry still echoed, but now when humans heard it, they smiled and remembered. Not because they had won, but because they had chosen to win the peace as well as the war. And that choice had made all the difference.